So we're going to look at determining the selling price using a few different concepts. So how do we set selling prices? Technically, the selling price should be enough to cover all the expenses and provide us a reasonable profit. That's why you go into business, right? To sell stuff and make a profit. So a couple different approaches we could use to set prices. We could use the market methods, which we're looking at the market price of what we're selling. Or we can look at the cost plus method, which we look at what it costs us to manufacture something and then put our margin on. So market methods, first one is the demand-based concept. So we set the selling price based on the demand. So if something's in real high demand, maybe we can set the price a little bit higher. Competition-based, we look at our competitors and set the price kind of according to what our competitors are pricing the product at. The cost plus method is we take our cost and then we price the product to achieve our target profit that we want. So the total cost concept is we take the total cost for that product, including selling and administrative, and then we put a markup on it. So if we want to earn 20% on a product, 20% margin, and our costs are $100,000, we would apply a 20% markup to the $100,000 cost. The product cost is if we don't look at selling and administrative costs, we just look at the product costs. So that's our direct materials, direct labor, and overhead, and then we add the markup onto our total product cost. And then the variable cost is we just add the markup to our variable cost to manufacture the product. So here's our facts we're going to use to look at the three methods. So we're given materials, labor, overhead, selling and administrative expense per unit. So we got our total variable cost per unit and then our total fixed cost. So first we'll look at the total cost concept. So we're going to take our total cost, which is our manufacturing cost, and then our selling and administrative expenses, and then put a markup on top of it, and then we'll arrive at our desired selling price. So our markup percentage is the desired profit divided by the total cost. So with that, Nebular Inc., we want a profit equal to 20% of total assets. Total assets are $800,000. The desired profit is $160,000, which is 20% of $800,000, or $1.60 per unit. So we know that based on our fact sheet, our variable cost per unit, fact sheet a couple slides ago, our variable cost per unit is $16. Times 100,000 units, our variable costs are $1,600,000. We're given our factory overhead and selling and administrative expenses on that previous slide too. So we have our total costs. So our total cost per calculator, so we take the 1,670,000 divided by 100,000 units, we get 1670 as our total cost per calculator. Now if we want to put our markup on it, so our markup we calculated before as the $1.60 per unit, the 800,000 divided by the 160,000 up in the facts. So our selling price would be the total cost, 1670, plus the $1.60 markup that we want. So our selling price would be $18.30 per unit. So our markup percentage, so our desired profit is 160,000 that we knew from the facts on the previous slide. Total cost is 1,670,000. So our markup percentage is 9.6%. So if we take our 1670 cost per unit, mark it up by 1 plus 9.6%, so 1.096, we get to our 1830 selling price. And now we look at our income statement and we get our 160,000 profit that we desired. So the product cost concept is we're going to look at the product cost, which is just the manufacturing costs. And then in our markup, we're going to have the desired profit, the administrative, and the selling expenses. So our markup percentage here is our desired profit plus the selling and administrative expenses over the total product cost. So if we have 100,000 units, let's look at the manufacturing cost per unit. So direct materials, direct labor, we factor in our fixed and variable overhead. So our total manufacturing costs come out to $1,500,000. Take the $1,500,000 divided by 100,000 units. Our manufacturing cost per unit is $15. So if we take our desired profit, we know we want $160,000, plus our selling and administrative expenses, which were given a few slides ago at $170,000, divided by the total product cost we just calculated of $1,500,000, our markup percentage is 22%. So our $15 manufacturing cost per unit we calculated on the previous slide times 22%, which was what we want our markup to be, is a $3.30 markup. So if we add the $3.30 markup to our $15 cost per unit, our selling price is $18.30 per unit. Now the variable cost concept, we're going to take the variable manufacturing costs plus the variable selling and administrative expenses, and our markup is going to be the total fixed costs and the desired profit. So our markup percentage in the variable cost concept is our desired profit plus total fixed costs and expenses over total variable costs. So let's look at the variable cost per unit. So we take our variable costs, direct labor, overhead, and variable selling and administrative expenses. So our total variable costs are $1,600,000 divided by 100,000 units. So our variable cost per calculator is $16. So now we want to calculate our markup percentage. So we take our desired profit plus total fixed costs and expenses. So 160,000 plus 50,000 plus 20,000. Those are the fixed selling and administrative costs we were given on the previous slide, divided by total variable costs of $1,600,000. So our markup is 14.4%. So we take our $60 variable cost per unit we calculate on the previous slide times 14.4%. We calculate our markup to be $2.30. We add the $2.30 to our total variable cost per unit of $16. So our selling price comes out to $18.30 per unit. So how do you pick what method to use? Well, Exhibit 11 gives us a pretty good look at the three different concepts. So each method, they're different estimates. So a few things to consider is the difficulty in gathering data. If you have these costs that are easy to find, some costs are easier to calculate in different businesses than another. So you figure out what costs that you have at your fingertips to use. And when you figure out what you have to use, then you pick the method. Manufacturing operations can be complex. There could be a lot of different costs that go into this, and it could just be, some methods could just be too hard to calculate. And what is decision making? What does management want to see? If management wants to see total cost, then you got to give them total cost. Other concepts, we have the target cost concepts. So activity-based costing, you trace cost to specific activities. So remember we had that one predetermined overhead rate before. You would have many different predetermined rates, and you'd have activities split out in different buckets. Target costing kind of combines market price with cost reduction, so not real common.